terms, under what circumstances, if any, are limitations on freedom of expression justifiable, and why? Is it preferable to have a single standard to use in limiting all forms of expression, or should there be separate standards for different forms of expression, such as for so-called hate speech? Why or why not? What are the benefits of freedom of expression to individuals and to society, as well as the costs?
In the words of the namesake of Fisk University, George Mason, no free government of the blessings of liberty can be reserved to any people, but by a firm adherence to justice, moderation, and temperance. In absolute terms, the First Amendment would create too vast of freedom for the people of our country. As the amendment has developed, the question has become, how must our freedoms of expression be tempered to most efficiently serve our society's needs?
This question is rooted in the contrast between classical republicanism and natural rights, or the balance between one's individual rights and the common good. Brandenburg v. Ohio established the doctrine of imminent lawless action, which restricts expression that results in immediate illegal behavior which might endanger members of the community. In such instances, it is justifiable that the content of one's expression is limited.
In 1941, Cox v. New Hampshire recognized that while the content of the expression may sometimes be beyond governmental reach, the manner in which it is expressed can be regulated by time, place, and manner restrictions in order to ensure public safety. The Supreme Court upheld the idea that when the exercise of one's rights conflicts with another's rights, restrictions are acceptable.
Regardless of the form, the government must have a compelling state interest, which prohibits it from arbitrarily making laws that infringe upon our rights. For example, in Texas v. Johnson, the court ruled that Texas's state interest in preventing the burning of an American flag was not substantial enough to limit the statement such an action makes.
It is not preferable to use single standards for different forms of expression. This would oversimplify the issue by placing the highest forms of expression, such as political speech and hate speech, on the same level of importance as lower forms, such as obscenity. Through its many decisions, the Supreme Court developed several levels of scrutiny. Speech is given strict scrutiny, which requires any limitations to be narrowly tailored to fit the issue. However, Miller v. California established a three-pronged test that can be used to determine and limit obscene expression.
Separate standards are also necessary depending on the setting. Because schools are limited public forums, we give up certain First Amendment freedoms within the halls of high school. However, these restrictions must be viewpoint neutral, even if they are not content neutral. These shades of restrictions further demonstrate different standards that already exist in our society when limiting our freedoms.
As current Chief Justice John Roberts stated in his majority opinion of United States v. Stevens, the First Amendment itself reflects a judgment by the American people that the benefits of its restrictions on government outweigh the costs. African Americans reap the benefits of the few freedoms granted to them, such as the freedoms of speech, assembly, and religious exercise, in their protests of segregation, making it possible for the Children's Crusade that led to the desegregation of Birmingham.
Our freedoms are better appreciated when compared with other nations. In October 2012, 14-year-old Malala Yousafzai was shot by the Taliban for advocating women's education rights. Additionally, in Iran, Pastor Yosef Naraqani was controversially sentenced to death because he converted to Christianity, demonstrating the nation's refusal to allow citizens to express themselves through free religious practices.
Groups such as Westboro Baptist Church infamously protest controversial issues, such as Reno High School's Gay Straight Alliance Club during our freshman year. However, they do so in a completely constitutional manner, showing how one's freedom of expression may be offensive to another. As stated in the majority opinion of Senator v. Phelps, as a nation we have chosen a different course, to protect even hurtful speech on public issues, to ensure that we do not stifle public debate.
Although there is a fine line between one individual's freedom of expression and another's, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes stated in his dissent in Abrams v. United States, "The ultimate good desired is better reached by free trade in ideas. The best test of truth is the power of the thought to get itself accepted in the competition of the market." Thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned school settings, restrictions. What about in a situation of national crisis or time of war? Should there be different standards, and if so, what standards should be considered in regulating speech during that period?
Absolutely. We see this in the freedom of the press, especially in the FISA supports, where in issues where there's a trial, press cannot come in and release information because it would be a threat to national security.
During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the editor of the New York Times was going to publish a story releasing that there were missiles aimed at the United States. However, JFK personally called him and asked him to postpone it due to the panic and stuff it would cause, just to hold off for a while before more issues could be resolved.
However, in times of war, I feel that the expression is greatly expanded, such as Tinker v. Des Moines, where the Tinker twins wore armbands to protest the Vietnam War. So these kind of things help make our country freer.
Talked about schools as limited public fora, and I'd like you to comment specifically on the case of student newspapers and whether newspapers are public forum in a school setting.
I'm actually the editor-in-chief of our high
There we
school
go.
newspaper
Good
that I
question.
do. And my colleague Ben is our sports editor. And when I get up there every month to do story ideas, we have to regulate the content. But if we, for example, were to write a story about our Democratic club that we have at school, we would also have to, if the Republican club wanted a article written in there, we would also have to write one about that. We can't we have to be neutral.
Hazelwood v. Kuhlmeyer established that if the newspaper is independent of the school, it's allowed to have more freedom as to what it publishes. However, if it's directly attached to the school, there are more restrictions, and the school can step in and limit what it publishes to a greater extent.
Do you agree with the reasoning in Kuhlmeyer?
I do. I think there's certain issues that shouldn't be discussed or are maybe too broad to be discussed. However, it's important that when those issues are discussed, there is definitely viewpoint neutrality so that both sides of the issues are discussed and it's not biased in a certain way.
In regular news media, minors are given special anonymity in sources. That kind of applies to school newspapers because you're talking about minors, you're focusing on issues that have to do with kids, so their expression should be limited in certain ways.
Justice Holmes once said that the freedom of expression is most concerned with freedom for the thought that we hate. What did he mean, and why should we afford freedom for hateful ideas?
It's also, there's the idea that not as much hate, but more of just like it's showing your opinion, how that you disagree, and for certain reasons. This is the idea that we want a free marketplace of ideas, and that we want everyone's ideas to be out there so we can weigh the different options. For example, government. For political speech, it's really important that we're able to show our discontent with the government, and so that they know whether or not certain laws are liked or not by the people.
Voltaire once said that, "I may not agree with you, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." This kind of goes into the idea of the free marketplace of ideas. We may have all these thoughts and ideas that we hate, but we won't know that we hate them unless we can express them freely and communicate them with other people.
Additionally, Frederick Douglass once said that to restrict speech is a double wrong because it violates not only the right of the speaker, but also the right of the listener. In other words, it's like the free marketplace of ideas, which Sarah and Donna mentioned. There's things that it's not only like the speaker is not the only one with rights. It's also the right to listen and the right to learn. So,
How do you think technology has impacted the area of free speech, whether in school settings or not? It's a broad area, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how technology has played a role in the level of or number of people that communications can reach.
There is one where it's specifically more of reviews and how this can be very precarious because with reviews it can really hurt someone, defame someone, and so that there's also been many restrictions. How there's no Supreme Court case there, it varies between districts. However, it's basically that your opinions are protected, and as long as you have some truth behind what you say, but if it's false, then you are liable for what you say.
And another problem rising out of new technology is the expansion of cyberbullying in a sense, and this makes it significantly harder for teachers to protect their students. But we are working on that. I've actually got a job at my local college this summer, and they do checks on Facebook to make sure that I'm not hurting anyone's reputation or anything like
Brandsburg v. Hayes established that even the local pamphleteer has freedom of speech rights or freedom of press rights, and so that would apply to blogs today. On blogs, you can put out whatever you want to say. Where you run into issues is with libel, so that's the restriction on blogs.
We're just about up, but yeah.
We are about.
Okay.
Maybe I get cut off mid-sentence.
That's right. Thank you very much. A little bit of feedback. I thought you did a good job in your opening talking about some areas, and again, this question is so broad and there's so many different ways that you can go. But I thought you had some good quotes, FISA board thing. I thought there's so many areas, any one of them which we could spend the entire questioning period on. So it's challenging between drilling down and looking at it broadly. But I thought you had a good grasp of the case material as well. So please.
I really have nothing to add to that. You did a nice job.
Yeah, I would like to your numerous citations of case law. That was great. I like your references to history, Kennedy, the Cuban Missile Crisis, local development in Reno. I thought that your response to my question about the newspaper was interesting. You obviously have a perspective. I guess I'm a little surprised, though. I thought you would come out a little more against Hazelwood. It's the 25th anniversary, and I do think it's, my personal opinion, it's kind of a conundrum where we're trying to teach young people journalism, but in a sense restricting some of your voice. So that's something I know that I've grappled with, and appreciate that you are also. But it's been with us for a while now, and it certainly impacted the student media environment. But I'd like just to thank you for all the work that you put into this. Thank your teacher and all the parents that came a long ways to support you here today. Best of luck.
Thank you.